Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a topic that pretty much shows up on every organization's toughest conversations list. You know the one.
Oh yeah, 100% of the time. Feedback.
Exactly. Feedback. But we're going to try and flip the script a little on how we usually think about it.
Right.
Especially for you if you're a track and field coach. I mean, feedback is the lifeblood of progress, isn't it?
Absolutely. Vital.
Whether it's what you say to your athletes, trying to shave off those precious seconds, or, what you hear back about your own coaching style.
Yeah, but like you said, it's not always easy to deliver.
And often, maybe even harder to receive.
That's the core paradox we're looking at. For years, the focus has been almost entirely on how to give feedback more skillfully. All those courses and books.
Sure, the standard management training stuff.
Exactly. But our sources today, and this is mainly from extensive research by Sheila Heen and her colleagues at the Harvard Negotiation Project, they suggest we've kind of been going about this backward.
Backward? How so?
Well, they argue it's not the giver, but the receiver who's actually in charge.
Okay, hold on. The receiver is in charge. That sounds counterintuitive. Unpack that a bit.
Yeah, it does, right. But think about it. The receiver decides what to actually let in, what sense to make of whatever they heard, and crucially, whether they're going to change anything based on it.
Okay, I see that.
So for you as a coach, whether you're, say, guiding a sprinter to a new PB or just reflecting on your own development, your own coaching journey, the key is really mastering the art of receiving feedback.
So this deep dive should help navigate that blizzard of feedback, as you called it, both for myself and for thinking about how my athletes actually hear my feedback.
Precisely. It's about managing the incoming stuff effectively.
Okay, so let's maybe start by defining feedback in this context, because our source seems to define it quite broadly.
Very broadly. It's not just your formal performance reviews or, the end of season evaluation with an athlete.
Right. It's more than that.
Much more. It's everyone's suggestions, little helpful tips people offer. Sometimes it's just the look in an athlete's eyes after a drill.
Or even subtle criticisms, maybe things unsaid.
Exactly. The source basically frames it as our relationship with the world and the world's relationship back with us. It's this constant stream of data about how we're showing up and how we're doing.
Okay, constant stream. That makes sense.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is the research they mention on people who actively go out and ask for negative feedback.
Negative feedback. Who does that? You mean not just fishing for compliments?
Right, not fishing. Genuinely looking for, okay, what can I improve? Tell me the hard stuff.
And what do they find about those people?
Well, these individuals tend to report higher work satisfaction, they adapt more quickly in new roles, and maybe unsurprisingly, they get consistently higher performance reviews.
Wow.
It really suggests that if you get better at just handling all the feedback coming your way, the good and the bad, it profoundly changes not just you, but also how others see you and experience you.
That's powerful. So for a coach listening right now, what would actively soliciting negative feedback actually look like in practice? I mean, how would you even start doing that? Seems daunting.
It can feel daunting, sure. But it's about shifting your mindset from just waiting for comments to, actively pursuing improvement points.
Okay, like how?
Well, it might mean asking an athlete directly. Something like, hey, what's one thing I could maybe do differently in practice that you think would help you perform better?
Oh, okay. Specific.
Or maybe going to a more experienced assistant coach and asking, what's one area where you see me maybe missing an opportunity to connect better with the team?
Got it. So asking for one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes it less scary, more actionable, and it shows you're committed to improving, which, tends to inspire confidence. It's a powerful path to growth.
It sounds like the benefits are really clear. But let's be honest, it still feels incredibly difficult sometimes to take feedback in, especially if it's critical. Why is it so hard?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Our source suggests that we humans are incredibly good at something they call wrong spotting.
Wrong spotting, what's that?
It means when feedback comes in, our immediate, almost automatic reaction is to scan it to find what's wrong with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, who gave it? Do I trust them? What exactly are they suggesting? Is that even feasible? Where did they give it? Was it the right time or place?
Finding flaws?
Exactly. And if we can find something wrong, anything, we can kind of set the feedback aside and relax. Because if it's right, well, then we have to keep worrying about it, maybe change something.
So we're incentivized to find fault quickly.
We really are. It's like our brains have these built-in feedback bouncers, checking IDs at the door, and sometimes they're a little overzealous.
That is so relatable. I'm sure many coaches listening are nodding right now. But, I mean, is it always wrong spotting? Are there times when dismissing feedback is actually the right call,
Mm.
especially if it's delivered badly or from someone you really don't trust?
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell the difference?
That's a really important distinction, and that's where the deeper work comes in. Yes, it's easy to dismiss feedback if it's poorly delivered or from an unexpected source. We all do it.
Right.
But the key insight here is realizing that your initial triggered reaction, that wrong spotting, isn't the end of the story. It should actually be the beginning of your process.
Okay, the beginning. How?
Well, even if you think, okay, 90% of this feels off base or unfair, maybe pause and ask, but is there a nugget in that last 10%? Could that little bit be exactly what I need to grow?
Finding the kernel of truth.
Yes. So for a coach, maybe it's an athlete or a parent complaining about something. And yeah, it's frustrating, maybe poorly timed. But even if it's mostly noise, that small, seemingly offhand comment could hold something invaluable for your own development or for the team's success.
Okay, so don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, basically.
Exactly. Now, the research identifies 3 universal triggered reactions that make receiving feedback so challenging. Understanding these helps you, as a coach, manage your own reactions better.
And maybe anticipate how my athletes might react to my feedback, too.
Precisely. It gets you insights into why some messages land and others just bounce off.
Okay, what are these triggers?
So the first one they talk about is truth triggers. This is all about the substance of the feedback itself. Is it correct? Is it accurate? Is the advice actually good advice?
Okay, the factual part.
Right. But figuring out what's true is tricky, partly because we often struggle to fully grasp what the giver is actually trying to tell us, their intent versus their words.
Yeah, communication is hard.
And also because we all have blind spots. Things about ourselves we just don't see accurately. We all have them, even if we think we don't.
So for a coach, maybe an athlete says, your drills aren't helping me with my block start. The truth trigger is about asking, okay, is that actually accurate?
Right. Do you have a blind spot about how you explain that technique? Or maybe about the intensity of that particular drill? It's about trying to discern the objective truth in the observation, even if it feels uncomfortable initially.
Okay, that's truth triggers. What's next?
The second is the relationship trigger. This one is huge because all feedback, every single piece, lives inside the relationship between the giver and the receiver.
Ah, the who.
Exactly. Often, our reaction is much more about who is giving us the feedback than what they're actually saying.
I can see that.
So, conquering this trigger really means learning to separate the who from the what. Can you evaluate the message on its own merits, regardless of your history or feelings about the messenger?
That's a big one for coaches, definitely. I mean, imagine getting feedback from a rival coach right after a really close meet.
Ooh, yeah.
Or from a parent you maybe don't fully trust, or perhaps an athlete who just had a terrible race and is obviously frustrated.
Yeah, the context matters so much to our reaction.
It's so easy to just dismiss the message
Yeah.
because of the messenger or the situation. But the challenge, and I guess the opportunity, is to uncouple those things.
Yeah.
To ask, okay, setting aside who said it and when, is there something valuable in the what?
That's precisely the skill. It takes practice.
Okay, truth, relationship. What's the third trigger?
The third, and this one is often the most emotional, is the identity trigger.
Identity.
Yeah. This is everything to do with your internal emotional reaction to the feedback. It's about the story you tell yourself about what this feedback means about who you are.
Oh, wow.
And our individual sensitivity here, how far we swing emotionally when we get feedback and how long it takes us to recover back to our normal baseline, it can vary wildly between people.
How wildly?
The research suggests some people recover almost instantly, while others can feel the sting mull it over for thousands of times longer.
Thousands of times. That's huge.
It is. Like a 3,000% difference in how intensely and how long feedback can affect us personally. It's tied to our sense of self.
That's a massive range. And I think that really gets to the heart of why feedback can feel so deeply personal, sometimes devastating. It reminds me, actually, of that story about the Olympic gymnast Michaela Moroni.
Ah, yes, the not impressed face.
Ah, right. At the 2012 London Olympics, everyone knew she was the best vaulter, clear favorite for gold. But she fell on her second vault, broke a 33-vault hitting streak, apparently.
Still got silver, though, which is incredible in itself.
Incredible. But that iconic picture of her on the medal stand with that scowl, it went viral.
Right.
It spoke volumes about that identity trigger, maybe.
It's a great illustration. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the story you tell yourself about the feedback or the outcome has a huge impact on how you feel.
More than the event itself.
Often, yes. Think about the research on Olympic medalists. Gold medalists are happiest, obviously, but often bronze medalists report being happier than silver medalists.
Really? Why?
Because the silver medalist often tells the story arc, I just lost gold, I was so close. The narrative is about loss.
Right.
Whereas the bronze medalist often tells the story, wow, yes, I medaled, I made the podium. Their narrative is about gain.
So the internal story shapes the emotional reality.
Profoundly. And for high achievers, like many coaches are, it's often the judgments and feedback we have for ourselves that are the hardest to deal with. That internal critic can be absolutely brutal.
Lighter than anyone else, for sure. I felt that.
Yeah. And psychologists estimate that our reactions or feelings about things are maybe based about 50% on our inherited wiring, just our temperament.
Okay. Half is genetic, sort of.
Roughly. But then maybe 40% is based on the story we tell ourselves about what happened.
40% on the narrative.
And only about 10% on the actual circumstances, the objective event itself.
Wow, only 10%. So it sounds like managing that internal narrative, that story we tell, is really the main battleground here when it comes to handling feedback.
That's where a lot of the leverage is, yes.
Okay, so given this really intense emotional landscape around identity, how can we actually start to manage these identity triggers more effectively? Can we leverage them somehow?
Yeah, that's the critical next step, isn't it? And to manage identity triggers, the researchers suggest it really helps to understand your own unique feedback profile.
My feedback profile, what does that involve?
They look at three main aspects. First, your baseline happiness or emotional set point. Second, how far you typically swing emotionally in response to feedback, positive or negative. And third, how long it takes you to sustain that reaction, or basically recover back to your baseline.
Okay, baseline, swing, and sustain. Let's unpack baseline first. Some people just seem happier generally.
Exactly. Some people seem to live at a 9 up on the happiness scale. Always thrilled, big win, great cup of coffee, doesn't matter. They show up a lot in resilience research because, well, nothing seems to get them down for long.
And others.
Others might live down at a 2 or 3, always a bit discontent, maybe see the glass half empty more often. This baseline directly affects how you take in positive feedback, too.
How so?
Well, for someone with a lower baseline, the volume on positive feedback might just be turned down. They hear it, but it doesn't register as strongly. So if you're a coach wondering why some people seem to need so much appreciation or positive reinforcement, it might just be that they live at a higher emotional baseline than you do, and that validation kind of helps keep them there. It resonates more.
Interesting. Okay, so that's baseline. What about the swing and sustain, the sensitivity part?
Right. We see challenges at both ends of the sensitivity spectrum here.
Both ends, okay.
So if you're very sensitive, you swing far and sustain long. One piece of negative feedback can suddenly feel like everything is wrong, and it will be wrong forever.
It gets magnified.
Hugely. The feedback becomes supersized in your mind. Your brain might fall into what they call the Google bias.
Google bias.
Yeah, like you're mentally Googling what's wrong with me. And because that's your search term, you get millions of hits every past mistake, every failed relationship, every time you messed up. Suddenly it seems like nothing you've ever done has been right.
Ouch. Because you're only searching for the negative.
Exactly. Your search results are driven by your search terms. You're not Googling things I'm handling relatively well. So in that overwhelmed state, you absolutely cannot learn. You're just consumed by the negativity.
All right, you're just drowning.
So the key work there is to kind of dismantle those distortions, see the feedback at its actual proportionate size, and then you can start to learn from it.
So for a coach, this might look like, say, a tough season review. Or maybe one critical comment from an athlete.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're dwelling on every single past mistake, every lost race, every tactical misstep you've ever made. It makes it impossible to see the path forward or even acknowledge your successes. You just get stuck, totally paralyzed by it.
That's a perfect description of being overwhelmed by high sensitivity. But then on the other hand,
being undersensitive, that has challenges too. I thought that might be easier.
You'd think so, but it has its own set of challenges. For one, you might not even realize people are trying to give you feedback. Well, they might say something indirect like, Coach Smith handles team meetings this way. And you just think, oh, good for Coach Smith. Completely missing the implied feedback that maybe they want you to consider doing it that way.
The subtle hints just fly right by.
They can, yeah. Or, second challenge. Even if you do get the feedback, understand it, and agree to work on it, it might not stick in your memory.
Why not?
Because memory is highly correlated with emotion. If you don't have much of an emotional reaction to the feedback, positive or negative, you might have the best intentions in that moment.
About that.
A week later, you've genuinely forgotten all about it. It just didn't imprint because there was no emotional tag attached.
Okay, I can see how that would be frustrating for the person giving the feedback.
Very. And there's a third thing that can happen if you're undersensitive.
Yeah.
You can be too quickly dismissive of feedback,
Yeah.
especially about your impact on others. People might tell you, for instance, that you come across as aloof or maybe intimidating.
Okay.
And you immediately dismiss it internally because you think, no, that's not right. I'm just shy, or I just have really high standards.
Right, you know your intentions?
Exactly. But here's the catch. Both things can be true simultaneously. Your intentions might be perfectly good. You are just shy. You do have high standards. But your impact on others might still be that you come across as aloof or intimidating.
Ah, intention versus impact.
Precisely. And especially for a leader like a coach who wants to build trust and encourage open communication with athletes and staff, recognizing that gap between your internal view and the external perception is critical. You can't just dismiss the impact because your intentions were good.
That's a really important point for coaches. Okay, so we've explored the challenges, the triggers, the different profiles. What does this all boil down to for, the track and field coach listening? Both in how they can receive feedback better to improve themselves, and also, crucially, how they can give feedback more effectively to help their athletes grow.
Okay, practical application. The most powerful tool the research suggests for receiving feedback better is actually deceptively simple.
Yeah, what is it?
It's to ask for one thing.
Ask for one thing. We touched on this earlier.
Right. Instead of asking a really vague, open-ended question like, do you have any feedback for me? Which honestly puts the other person completely on the spot and can feel overwhelming for them too.
Yeah, nobody likes that question.
Nobody. Instead, ask for something specific. This helps lower the stakes for your own identity trigger because it's focused and it makes the request much more actionable.
Okay, give me an example for a coach receiving feedback.
Sure. You might ask an athlete, hey, what's one thing I'm doing, or maybe one thing I'm failing to do, that you think is getting in the way of your performance right now?
Specific and performance-focused.
Or you could ask an assistant coach, or maybe a mentor, what's one thing I could change about how I run our weekly team meeting that you think would be an improvement?
So by asking for one thing, you're kind of assuming there is one thing.
You are. And guess what? If you don't know what you need to be working on as a leader or a coach, trust me, everyone else around you does.
They have a secret list.
They often have a secret list. Things you do that drive them a bit crazy or make it harder for them to succeed. So when you ask them for just one thing, they're almost certainly going to have an answer ready.
They've probably been carrying it around with them.
Exactly. And you'll get something specific, something concrete that's genuinely worth considering and maybe discussing further. You might even find they come back a few days later saying, there was actually a second thing I wish I'd mentioned.
Okay, so ask for one thing is powerful for receiving. What about for giving feedback as a coach using these insights?
Right. So while our sources focus mainly on the receiving end, understanding these triggers, truth, relationship, identity is absolutely critical for coaches when they're giving feedback.
How does it help?
Well, if you can anticipate an athlete's potential reactions. For instance, are they likely to question the accuracy of your observation? That's a truth trigger.
Okay.
Or are they reacting more to your tone? Or maybe their history with you? That's a relationship trigger. Or is your feedback hitting them hard emotionally, touching on their sense of self-worth? That's the identity trigger.
So anticipating helps you frame it better.
Exactly. If you can anticipate these potential hurdles, you can frame your feedback much more effectively. You can choose your words, your timing, your approach more skillfully to help them bypass some of those internal defenses.
And actually absorb what I'm trying to convey.
Yes. It increases the chances that your coaching will actually land, that it will stick. It helps you understand why some feedback works wonders and other feedback just seems to vanish into thin air.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about understanding the receiver's internal world a bit better.
Precisely.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really reveals that feedback, it kind of sits right at the junction of two really core and sometimes conflicting human needs, doesn't it?
It really does. What are they, in your view?
Well, on one hand, our deep desire to learn and grow, to get better. But on the other hand, our equally deep need to be accepted, respected, loved, just as we are right now.
Beautifully put. And the very nature of feedback, even helpful feedback, inherently suggests that how we are now might not be totally okay,
Yeah, that the people around you maybe want a few more upgrades to who you are currently.
which can feel painful. It can feel like a rejection, even when it's meant to help.
Right. This state.
And yet, think about it. Some of the most important things we learn in life, the biggest growth spurts, often come directly from our most painful experiences.
That's true. Adversity breeds growth.
There doesn't seem to be a completely pain-free human learning system. But the work here, the value in understanding these feedback dynamics, is about learning to understand and manage that inevitable pain better.
To maybe shorten the recovery time.
Yes, and to enrich our relationships in the process, and ultimately to get to the learning, the growth, faster and more effectively.
So for you, the coach listening, embracing this perspective isn't just about handling criticism better. It's really about accelerating your own learning curve and enriching your relationships with your athletes, your staff, your peers. It's about learning to leverage every bit of feedback, even the really difficult, uncomfortable kind, to become a better, more effective coach.
And maybe fostering a more resilient, growth-oriented team environment where everyone feels a bit safer being open to improvement, including you.
Yeah, leading by example and receiving feedback.
Couldn't say it better.
Yeah.
So the next time you receive feedback, or maybe even when you're preparing to give some feedback to an athlete, perhaps pause and ask yourself,
What questions?
how can I understand the triggers that might be at play here for me or for them? And what one thing can I focus on or maybe ask for to help transform this interaction from a potential conflict into genuine growth?
Hmm. Powerful questions. Definitely something to mull over as you continue to push boundaries and inspire excellence, both on and off the track.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.